Dear students, it is the fourth clip. It is all about when to use passive voice. In the previous discussion, we expressed that active voice should be used to express your subject matter clearly while emphasizing on the subject properly. But it is not necessary that there is always the active voice working well with the scientific subject matters. In many cases, passive voice is also a very recommended and very favorite one to express the scientific subject matters clearly. In our day-to-day life, we find that when we want to focus on the action done, not focus on the subject, we prefer on what is being done and who is the affected party. There we use the passive voice. In passive voice, our function remains on effect and the affected. Thereby, passive voice is considered as very important. Fine. Secondly, in newspapers and news media, for example, Prime Minister deciding something, for example, in these days, we say it has been decided, clear. Yeah, read the sentence, for example, some session was held and the Prime Minister and the Cabinet took decision. One news is this, that today Prime Minister called the meeting, he headed the meeting, he discussed the points with the cabinet members, the ministers told the Prime Minister that they are doing very well. Fine. It is active tense and repetition is going to be mean our attention divert to Prime Minister and the ministers and this and that, whereas the action is not central focused. Same thing is expressed in media. A meeting was held by the Prime Minister and certain decisions were taken. Prime Minister was briefed about the progress of ministers during this week. Prime Minister was assured complete cooperation. Now this is very concise, precise. This helps you to express your subject matters clearly and precisely. Fine. Secondly, passive voice is used in official writing where you have to use reference to your subject matter. For example, please a one-day leave be granted. One day leave be granted to me. Fine. So grant me one day leave is may be offensive, not up to the authorities' sanctity, but please the leave be granted is fine. So these are some of the areas where we use passive voice. Rest of the discussion we may make it through. When to use passive voice? As a student writer, you will frequently encounter circumstances favoring the passive voice, especially when you are preparing technical reports based on labs you have completed. You even be told never to use I and we in your papers. The convention of writing scientific reports, especially especially the experimental sections, largely in the passive voice, is a strong and sensible. Where you are experimenting, you are telling about the functions and experiments, that there you have to use the passive voice. And you should not fight it, but know how to work within the boundaries. We should not fight that here we have to use passive and active. It depends on the situation. Where you feel that you have to use active, you should use active. When used correctly, the passive voice has desired impact of focusing readers and writers' attention on the methodology and the data generation. Fine. It is used to express the methodology and data generations. we take some of the experimental sessions. Throughout the experimental section of the scientific report or anywhere that you must summarize your own or another author's experimental procedure or findings, but the actual inclusion of names would be awkward, distracting or unconventional. For example, initially a fractured steel specimen was plated. Fractured steel specimen was plated, and here it is not who plated it, simply focus on the function, with electroless nickel and secured in an epoxy mount by vacuum impregnation. The findings the findings of the November 1997 report to NASA were based on DMTA, DSC and FTIR tests results were based on. Findings were based on. In formal abstracts that introduce papers, sensitivity experiments are reviewed. Sensitivity experiments are reviewed to investigate the influence of the specificity, surface temperature anomalies on blocking in the northern hemisphere. Dear students, I think so that you should read yourself and understand. It means that formal abstracts and sensitivity experiments are reviewed. Mean the action is who reviewed, no person is mentioned. Mean they are reviewed. Mean they have sum up the reviewing of the person. The sample should be monitored regularly and should be dried carefully once they are cool. Mean when you are writing instructions and want to express more on the action, you should write the passive. Winter wheat is planted in autumn. Winter wheat is planted rather than inactive. Peasants plant wheat in autumn, but here winter wheat is planted in autumn and ripens in the following spring or summer. Fine. So let's summarize our discussion that where you have to use experimental sections, where you have to use the summaries and other focus on the work, we use passive voice as a preference. Well, in the next discussion we will talk about transitions words. Thank you very much.